It is truly wonderful to see so many faces that I recognize here at the beautiful and historic Minneapolis Club. On behalf of Avivo, I want to thank you for being here and for being part of the extraordinary community we call our Leadership Circle. We are here today for a simple but powerful purpose, to say thank you, and to celebrate the impact your generosity makes possible, to share with you some of what Avivo is doing and what lies ahead, thanks in no small part to the partnership that you have with us and your belief in our mission. Before we go any further, though, there are two people I want to extend deep gratitude to for allowing us to join them in this historic place, and that's Brian Peach and Christopher Herman. Thank you both for opening the doors. Like Brian and Christopher, all of you here today are part of a group of leaders who have stood with Avivo through challenging times, during moments of bold innovation, and now, as we look forward to the future of continued growth and deepening impact. You're going to hear more in a moment, though, about some of those exciting changes and things to come from someone who lives and breathes this work every day, Avivo's President and CEO, Kelly Matter. For more than a decade, Kelly has led with vision, heart, and an unshakable commitment to the dignity of everyone we serve. Please join me in welcoming Kelly to the stage.
Thank you, Bruce, and absolutely thank you, Brian and Christopher, for welcoming us into your beautiful home for lunch. It means the world to us. I have got the wrong folder. Sorry about that. I don't think you want me to read the Avivo Housing LLC incumbency certificate. Well, it'll be interesting. We'll lose you to sleep. So good morning, everyone. Welcome, truly welcome to a very special gathering of Avivo's Leadership Circle. You are the inner circle of supporters who mean the world to us and help us have the impact in the community that we have. And while it's a bit early for grand announcements, I promise I have two what we call grand announcements to share with you towards the end of my remarks. So this is our first time hosting our inner circle, our Leadership Circle of supporters. It's an opportunity for us that's not at a gala, not at a fundraising event, to bring our supporters in, to really bring you in a more intimate setting, let you look under the hood a little bit. It gives us an opportunity to share our impact and our outcomes, let you know what keeps us up at night a little bit, and for us to hear from you. So as we proceed with the event, please ask us questions now or follow up with us afterwards. Let us know what you want to know more about, and let us know what you're thinking about as well. But I want to kick us off. Of course, I want to kick us off with something that is worth celebrating. The story starts bleak and it gets better. So in 2023, one of the hardest years Avivo's ever experienced, we closed the year at a $3.2 million loss. It was tough, and we weren't alone in this in the community of not-for-profits. It reflected a whole host of pandemic-related issues, workforce shortages, inflation, programmatic disruptions, and really structural changes in how the work we do was being funded. But fast forward to the end of 2024, and while the audit is not quite complete, it's going out today, we will close 2024 with a loss of just $200,000. A remarkable turnaround. I see Avivo team members who haven't heard this yet, like really surprised, who are nitty-gritty, sleeves rolled all the way up, helping us make this difference. And while $200,000 loss is not where we want to be, of course, it's a remarkable comeback. And so far, 2025 is showing that it will be an even better year. So how did this happen? How do we do it? Innovation, grit, hard decisions, a lot of hard decisions, relentless curiosity, and honestly, chronic optimism. And one of the boldest changes our organization has ever made, and a continued, utter commitment to having impact in our community. And while it's more complicated than I can share in a short period of time, I'm going to give you kind of the biggest reason for the turnaround in Avivo's deficit. The biggest reason for our deficit was that in 2023 was employee turnover and not having a workforce to carry out our important and our hard mission, and therefore to generate the revenue that we needed to provide the services that we provide every single day. After the pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, the acuity of mental health and addiction, and hopelessness in our community, people who are doing this work every day were not just leaving Avivo, they were leaving the field. And new people are not coming into human services right now either. So one of the boldest changes we made, though it is based in evidence, it's rarely done in the not-for-profit space, and honestly, it's rarely even done in the United States. But Avivo implemented a reduced work week, where 80% of our employees are on a 32-hour work week. The rest of our workforce will be there by the end of 2025. We knew we were not in a position to attract employees by increasing wages, though us and everyone else in this space was attempting to do that. It was a losing proposition. We were not going to be able to fulfill our mission. We were not going to be able to generate the revenue we needed, and we would have went further into debt and jeopardized our mission. But we did believe we could offer a better work-life balance during these difficult times. And I want to publicly thank the Avivo Board of Directors for taking this risk with us. It was a risk, and it was not easy. It's still not easy every day, but the risk has paid off. Our staff are working 32 hours a week at pay for 40 hours a week. They're still providing life-changing services and impact at the same rate and even more than we were prior to this change. We piloted this in late 2023, and the results have been transformational. Turnover is the lowest it's been, and I'm not talking about just pre-COVID, but turnover is the lowest it's been at Avivo in over a decade. Our jobs remain difficult, but burnout is eased. And through a study through a partnership with the University of Minnesota, it shows that our staff report being engaged with increased balance in their lives. And key to this change, however, is our ability to maintain revenue generation. And our revenue generation has increased. With fewer new employees to recruit, onboard, and train, Avivo sees consistency, quality, and reliable billable hours. So it's not just good for morale, it's good for mission, and it's good for our bottom line. So this bold move made during a period of real financial pressure is helping power the turnaround that Avivo is experiencing today. And most importantly, it reflects our values: dignity for all people, a radical welcome, and the value of curiosity and innovation in solving problems, not just for the people we serve, but for those who serve. And now, because I have an audience, I get the opportunity to talk a bit about the outcomes and impact Avivo had in 2024. And my team, I don't know where Megan is, but I'm blowing it because I'm not doing the PowerPoint. Is that all right? You'll just get distracted by great pictures. And so I want to share, in 2024, one of the hardest years we've experienced, Avivo served over 11,000 individuals and families, and we indirectly impacted the lives of 33,000 children in that work. These 11,000 people, 98% of who Avivo serves, live in deep poverty. So that means for a family of 4, they're earning under $24,000 when we begin serving them. So 11,000 people with a lot of barriers to success. 1,729 people entered employment, and 88% of them kept their jobs beyond 6 months. And the industry standard, what we're measured against, is 70%, and our team hit 88%. And I know that 6 months into this year, we're at 89%. 280 individuals went through the Avivo Institute for Career and Technical Education and started on pathways not just to jobs, but to careers. And I know many of you have heard this before, but I can't help sharing it. Until I get the next best story, Becca. We had a young gentleman, who graduated from our HVAC training program and started a job at $103,000 a year. Yeah. He went from poverty and homelessness to paying market rate rent after a 15-week training program and 8 months. An 8 months training program and a lot of support from some amazing Avivo employees. 1,479 households moved permanently off of public assistance, or what we call MFIP in the state of Minnesota, reclaiming their independence and building financial resilience. 2,198 individuals access our substance use, our mental health, treatment, and recovery. People are on pathways to recovery and the next best step for them. Over 1,700 people were supported in finding permanent housing and maintaining permanent housing, people who had been experiencing homelessness. And at Avivo Village, what most of the world knows us for, and our boldest model of crisis response, 118 people just last year moved from sleeping outside to shelter at Avivo Village to permanent housing. And along with that, we had 5 babies born into love and stability at Avivo Village last year. Babies who maybe wouldn't have made it into this world, and if they had, they might have been born on the street or sleeping outside. And we're expanding our impact. So I have 2 bold announcements to share with our inner group of favorite supporters, if you will. Number 1, we are breaking ground on a second Avivo Village, this time in St. Cloud, Minnesota. We are building from the ground up. We are tailoring this to the community, the unique community that's divided, the unique city divided by 2 counties and other counties wanting a piece of this, but modeled after the success we've experienced in the North Loop of Minneapolis. It'll offer dignity-based shelter and wraparound care for individuals who in that community have nowhere else to go. I'm also excited to share that in the 4th quarter of this year, Avivo is expanding our intensive outpatient treatment to provide family treatment with housing for dads and their children. Much like we've been doing for women and their children for decades, we are going to offer the same level of care and specialized support to dads and their kids. Non-custodial dads, custodial dads. We will provide unification, housing, treatment, and steps for dads and their children moving forward. And again, 98% of who we serve when they come into our treatment program are experiencing homelessness. So we could not be more excited to expand what has been innovative for women and children to even more innovative for men and their children. It's been on our wish list for over a decade, and we're finally going to see this come to fruition as well. So none of this is easy, and it's not getting easier. The federal budget passed this summer cuts deeply into housing, mental health, and harm reduction programs. These are the very lifelines that fuel all of the work and the positive impact Avivo is having in our community. We also lost $450,000 of a state appropriation to the Avivo Institute in the last Minnesota session and budget cuts made at the state. And we're anticipating further cuts to our workforce development programming, but we will not slow down. We're diversifying our revenue, we're making strategic investments, we're driving efficiencies, and we are absolutely not cutting corners on the care and the compassion that we provide every individual that we serve in our community. And thanks to you, our leadership circle, you help make it possible through generosity, advocacy, belief in our mission, and most importantly, the belief in all people. We turned a financial deficit into a story of a real turnaround and renewal. We reimagined and supported our workforce to meet their needs and the needs of our community. We expanded our unique services to have the greatest impact, honestly, at a time when our community needs Avivo more than it has ever needed Avivo. And I think, and I look at the team of Avivo and our partners and all of you, I feel like we met the moment. We met the hard moments, not with fear, but with boldness. So I want to close with my simple, heartfelt thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Avivo family, for believing in us, for investing and believing in second chances, believing in stable jobs, believing in housing with doors that lock and futures that open. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. And now, please continue to eat and enjoy each other's company, but I'm going to give you a preview of what's next because I'm very excited about it. I will be moderating a powerful panel discussion with three amazing and remarkable leaders. Charlotte Morris is Avivo's Program Director for Permanent Supportive Housing. Brandon Sanford is literally on the ground every single day, leading our cutting-edge work at Kimball Court and American House in St. Paul. And retired MPD Commander Grant Snyder, and now even more in the fray with us in this work as the leader of a not-for-profit organization that provides food for individuals that Avivo serves and many others in the community as well, and a longtime advocate and partner of ours in this work. Together, they, and with all of you, we will dig into the intersection of unsheltered homelessness, encampments, public policy, mental health, and substance use disorder, and how Avivo's philosophy of housing first and harm reduction is not only compassionate, but effective. We hope that their experience and their expertise will inspire new ways of thinking in all of us. You'll also have a chance to ask questions, so please do be part of the dialogue. I promise it's a conversation that you'll remember after you've left today. So continue to enjoy lunch, enjoy each other. Let's recommit together, if you will, on building what comes next. All right, it's an honor, an absolute honor for me to join this group of individuals that the three of them together have probably had as much impact in our community as, many organizations put together. They are utterly and truly committed to making a difference. And they're very smart as well and kind. So I'm going to kick us off with a couple questions, but want to open it up to all of you to ask questions as well. And alone, I could probably ask these three questions all day. But I'm going to start with Charlotte and Brandon from the Avivo team. Can you share how harm reduction and housing first approaches practically work together in Avivo's daily work to help people stabilize and thrive? And maybe just a brief description for people who don't know what housing first and harm reduction mean.
Yeah, sure. Housing first and harm reduction. Housing first begins with the premise that housing is a basic human right, that folks need a place, a foundation to be first before any of the other things, the struggles in life, might be addressed, right? Having a safe place to call home is the beginning point. Harm reduction is similar in that it meets people where they are in the true, real struggle of whatever it is they're facing and says, you know what's best for you. Let me come alongside you and help you know what's available out there, have information and resources to make the best decisions to stay as safe as you can in the midst of the true struggle of your life. And I think these approaches really bring to life Avivo's values, particularly the value of dignity. This is the real day-to-day living out of you matter, your story matters, your struggle matters, and your resiliency matters. Right? And we, in our daily work, when we work with folks, this is what we embody through these philosophies of meeting people in the real hard struggle that often includes mental illness and substance use disorder and family trauma and historical and generational trauma, and meeting people in the heart of that with real authenticity to say, we're here with you and we believe that you know what's best. Let us help you walk alongside with you to get the resources and support you need.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Brandon Sanford. I'm the program manager with American House and was formerly with Kimball Court and American House, two of our 4 site-based locations. I like to think of this story of If we can get away from the illicit substance that some folks choose to use illicit substances to deal with historical trauma. If we think about the uncle who was in Desert Storm and maybe has a pension check and lives in grandma's basement, and once in a while on holidays he'll come up and cause a ruckus because he's experiencing psychosis or things of that nature, it's not different from the people that we serve. Many of the people we serve deal with historical trauma, mental health, chemical health issues, and generational issues of trauma. We have a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter in our place, and so we have folks that treat their trauma with what works for the time being, and oftentimes that's illicit substances. So for better or for worse, we understand that people need to access housing and a safe place to be. I can share with you there's some really amazing ways of we look at things, and that we have done some really amazing things to reduce the barriers to access housing. One of my favorite stories is that we had a mother who was in housing, and she was constantly getting these lease violations for having too many guests or sneaking guests overnight. And so she was arguing with security. She had a notice to vacate. And so we sat down with her and talked about her, what was going on. Turns out it was her two daughters who were being trafficked, who were in domestic violence situations, who were using fentanyl and sleeping outside of the building. And she said, I don't care what it takes, my daughters are gonna have a safe place to stay at night. And so given that information, we were able to talk to our partner with property management and have a conversation with them and with security to talk about, can we give this mom a break just a moment, let the daughter stay with them for the time being, apply at one of our other buildings, and within 2 weeks, no, less than 2 weeks, we had those two daughters housed and alleviated that issue. Before you know it, mom's sweeping the halls and volunteering with us doing the work, but like if we take the time to lean into that curiosity, we can really find some amazing outcomes.
All right, Grant. As someone who served in law enforcement and now leads Involve Minnesota, has your perspective changed on the role police should play or not play in addressing unsheltered homelessness?
That's a super good question. Thanks a lot for everybody's participation here. I do want to say up front that when Avivo has the courtesy to ask me to do something like this, I jump at it because I love Avivo. I love all the people there. I love your clients and all the supporters, the people that have done this. I worked for about 3 decades in the Minneapolis Police Department and managed to sit in those rooms where we would talk about these issues, about drug use and about crime and about encampments and all the other things that would impact the community. And we used to have a saying, if nobody else can do it, Avivo can do it. And I'm not making that up for you. I know I've said that at times just so that you know that that is a really genuine perspective. Avivo has taught many of us, and I'm no exception to that, so much about what this work is supposed to look like. And so I think that, Kelly, you asked, has my perspective changed? My perspective changed dramatically when I had the good fortune of being able to work closely with you and with John and with your incredible staff. One of the things that I carried into this work as a police officer and later as a sergeant, I started our homeless outreach unit, which had never existed before, on April 1st of 2018, and that was a fitting time for me to start that. I met first with people from Avivo. That was the first meeting that I ever had, and I remember so vividly sitting there knowing nothing about, I'd spent many years as a cop, and I'd spent time in places that were around people that were struggling and whatnot, but until I actually got a chance to sit across the table from people that had so much more wisdom, I didn't know what I was going to be walking into. And they prepared me, not as gently as I may have appreciated at that time, but certainly it was a good opening to do that work. Law enforcement in its many different formats is not a precise tool, and it should be, but it's not. And the perspective change that occurred for me happened as soon as I started spending all day, every day out in the encampments, and all day, every day around people that suffered, and all day, every day around people that were carrying demons and burdens and things that I had never personally carried. I don't have a background in addiction or chemical dependency, but I have had family members that were. And so all day, every day, I was in the encampments, and the wisdom and the pieces of information I was able to get from them helped me to craft an understanding about what actually makes a difference. My role was not an enforcement role. It was a liaison role, because I believed, and I still believe, that people who have sort of a limited ability to access systems of justice need some additional support to be able to do that. And to give you a perspective, they changed with me, the people that I would see out in the encampments when I first started going out there. And I was in a soft uniform. It had a badge on, a polo, and different things like that. But when I first started going out there, people were hiding their drug use. They were hiding things like that. And it wasn't that long as I continued to show up and show up and show up that all of a sudden people are using drugs when I'm there, right? Now that sounds like a loss. That sounds like a boundary issue, doesn't it? You've got a police officer there. That was my early introduction to harm reduction, right? Because I started to understand this is a safety thing for them. And when they realized I wasn't going to arrest them, that I was in a different role, it opened up all kinds of doors and all kinds of possibilities. And with people learning to understand that they are more than the sum of their actions, and that there's, you said the word dignity, and that's really what it was about, treating people, no matter what burdens they're carrying on any given day, that they have incredible intrinsic worth, and recognizing that. And so I think that's the biggest change that occurred. There's 1,000 other things we could talk about. But.
So we are seeing a shift, and I think, you're reading about it, we're feeling it in other ways, that there's policy that's leaning towards criminalizing poverty and substance use. I just want to ask, what's the real impact of this shift on the people Avivo serves?
I'll begin with its added barriers, right? A criminal background is a barrier to housing to start. Many of the folks we're working with have a criminal background to start. And if people continue to get new charges during their time of unsheltered homelessness simply for being unsheltered, it's going to add barriers to getting housing, add barriers to finding employment, and add barriers to reestablishing stability. I would also add Kelly, you mentioned it, the impact to self-worth, and like, I can't do this, I got another thing, like I'm at the courthouse again, that it just perpetuates the cycle that makes it hard to find stability again.
One of my favorite parts of this work is the non-traditional relationships we build with folks, especially around law enforcement. As an outreach worker, I had the opportunity to take a lot of folks they had barriers to housing with active warrants. I was taking them to court, working to relieve those warrants. We got assigned a day in court, and before you know it, officers were showing up and meeting with individuals, and I'm gonna take you in for a warrant. I don't have warrants. Well, outreach team took us and quashed the warrants, and so we built that relationship. And so that's something we've really been able to do really amazing. To have our participants have less interaction with law enforcement and emergency services is we see federal funding cut for unsheltered homeless services. It is cost effective to house people. A hospital can be over thousands of dollars per night, jail hundreds of dollars per night, treatment thousands of dollars per night, detox hundreds of dollars per night. But permanent supportive housing through Avivo with supportive services is $58 a day. And so that's the pushback we can give to those folks who are unaware of that. Not only is it cost effective, it's life changing. And so, yeah, those numbers just bear out.
Can I make one comment about that? So one of the important things to remember is that two things can be true at the same time, right? So you can have an understanding about how people sleeping in encampments and engaged in all kinds of drug use and different things like that impacts communities, and it impacts businesses, and impacts people's lives. That can be true. It can also be true that encampments may be the only place where people feel safe. And those are and it's John Tribbett, an amazing employee of Avivo, who's my brother, and we're best friends now. We didn't start that way. John told me some very brutal truths that I had to, as a new sergeant, had to face, but we started to recognize, you know, right now Minneapolis and St. Paul are really engaged in this idea that we're going to take down encampments. And the problem with taking down encampments and the problem of scattering people is they don't have any place to go. And I saw that firsthand. It's the burden and the weight of watching people push everything they own in the world in a shopping cart down the sidewalk in the rain, not knowing where they're going to go. We can all do better than that. And this current effort by both cities is not going to work. This isn't the first time it's been tried. And so thank goodness for you guys, that you're here to do those sorts of things that are going to pick up the pieces when they realize that this isn't getting them anywhere.
And we will absolutely keep doing that work. And I just want to share, kind of, Brandon, to your point, you know, kind of a hard cost numbers. As I said, we're building Avivo Village in St. Cloud, 48 units for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And the cost, kind of the capital cost of building that is about $30,000 per unit. They're building a jail in that community at the same time. And the cost for building that cell that someone will sleep in is about $330,000 per unit. So that's on the capital side. You know the statistics, are hard to play out, but we know that the cost of emergency department, of the criminal justice system, of clearing encampments, is well upwards of $100,000, per person, if you will, whereas we can house someone at Avivo Village, connect them to permanent housing, connect them to training, connect them to careers, again, for around $45,000 a year. So there's a numbers difference there as well. All right, I would like each of you to share, and Brandon, you've shared a few stories, but can each of you speak to a moment when you saw a life turn around because the right services, not criminalization, were available at the right time?
How much time do you have?
Ask your audience.
I'll say this. It's really challenging at times to watch people make decisions that are very different from what you'd hope for them. This work can be really hard. And it's really hard to wrap my head around if I haven't had that experience of how people can make these choices and what you allow people to use drugs. We respect the choices that people make and realize that everybody should have housing as a home base. A woman, Stacy, a really amazing young woman, historical trauma, sexual trauma, cutting, methamphetamine use, suicide attempts, 5 children in foster care, involved in sex work, but was honest with us about what she was experiencing. And so when we are able to provide her injection equipment and those things she needs to stay safe during her use, I call them engagement tools. So when we take away that most stigmatizing thing in our society, injection drug use, and provide these services, it frees her up to talk about what she's experiencing. She became pregnant again, wasn't sure what she was going to do. She had a situation with her heart. She had a heart infection. We helped her get onto a maintenance program to help her with her opiate addiction. She went in and out of the hospital a couple of times, left against medical advice. We met with her, worked with her, helped connect her to women in a 12-step program that went up and met with her, continued to visit with her. She decided to stay through the whole protocol. It was several months in the hospital, went into a long-term 12-step program with abstinence, and now she has Section 8 and has her five children plus her new baby back in her life. And so while all those aren't the outcome of all of our folks, our responsibility is for showing up and doing the work in a compassionate manner. And so I have to say, as a young person doing this work on the front line and outreach, I always thought my work was the most important, but I've realized through doing this work over time that everyone in our community plays a role, from the donors to the kind word we say to the person experiencing homelessness, to Kelly, to law enforcement, and that I just want to say thank you for having us here and for participating in this, and that I realize now as a matured person that all of our efforts are equally as valuable.
One of my favorite days in this work is move-in day, when people get to sign the lease and get their keys, and the sense of relief, you can see it, right, in people's shoulders and their body language, when they get their own place and they can come and go as they please, and they get fresh sheets for the bed that's furnished. It's just a beautiful human sharing and experience with the Avivo team. And I love move-in day, and I love the next week when I'm on site. I bounce between the sites that I'm on, and it's really important to me to be on site with the teams. And you come back the next week, and then the person's bright in their eyes, right? And you can see the stress relief from their face, and they're sharing about making their first meal in 3 years because they've been outside. And it's just so powerful, the experience of home, when people get a place to stay and a place they're gonna call home, right? It's not a shelter bed, it's permanent supportive housing. 12 months of a lease that's yours with on-site supports to help you walk through whatever it is that's coming next, now that you've had a chance to take a breath and let your central nervous system calm a little bit and think about what's gonna be next week. Now I don't have to worry about tonight, so I can think about next week, and I can think about next month. Eventually I'll start thinking about next year. And the power of the human experience in that is just life-changing as a provider in this work, and it's just such a gift to be in that with people and see that home helping people heal.
So I did about 20 years of human trafficking work as a detective before I started the homeless outreach unit. And this is an example, and this was before I knew what harm reduction was. During that period of time, I was focused primarily on juvenile victims, both girls and boys. And there's a little 16-year-old girl from North Minneapolis. She was in custody of her grandmother. And I got a referral to go see grandma because grandma said that I think that she's involved in prostitution. And she would disappear for days on end, and then she would come home and she'd have a pocket full of money or brand new shoes that were expensive or whatever. So I went up and I sat down when she came back with this young lady, and I didn't accuse her of anything. I didn't press her to tell me where she'd been or any of that kind of stuff. I said, look, I know that you're in this cycle of running away, and then you're gone for a few days and you're coming back. Grandma's very concerned. I'm very concerned. I said, the next time you run away, because I know you're going to run away again, I'm going to give you my card. And if you call me and you tell me you're okay every day, I won't come and look for you. That was actually a lie. I did look for her. But she didn't believe that. She thought I was telling the truth. So we made this deal. This little girl, like a week later, ran away, and for 2 weeks, she called me every single day and said, hey, it's so-and-so. I just want to let you know I'm okay. Apparently the thought of having some old, bearded, bald cop kicking down doors looking for this girl wasn't appealing to her. And she called me one day, 2 weeks after these calls started, and said, I'm done. Can you come and pick me up at the Microtel down in Eagan? So I went down and I got her. We arrested the traffickers that were there. We were able to put a case on 16 of the buyers, what we would commonly call Johns, all because that little girl stayed in contact with me, which, by the way, my supervisors couldn't believe she was calling me.
I bet.
That little girl, this spring, graduated with her master's in marine biology.
Wow.
Now, that's an example of what harm reduction looked like from my point of view before I knew what it was called. You guys have known for a lot longer than I have. But that's the power of being present, like you all do every single day in people's lives, and being there when they're ready, because that day comes. I promise you that day comes.
Thank you. What do you believe our donors and community leaders most need to understand and act on to protect and expand programs like Avivo Village and harm reduction and housing first in this current climate? I'm sorry, you all made me cry. I'm sniffling.
My encouragement first is to stay informed, to resist the changing narrative that housing first doesn't work. Housing first does work. We know the solution to end homelessness. It's housing. When people have housing, they are no longer homeless. Housing paired with services, the right supports at the right time in the right place, ends homelessness for people. Don't don't believe the changing narrative that it doesn't work. It does work. So stay informed about that. Stay connected with leaders in this field who believe that truth, who know that truth, who have the data about that truth. Stay connected with Avivo. We'll keep helping you be informed about it too. It matters, and in staying informed, we humanize the story, right? The rhetoric is so othering in our present climate, and that every single person experiencing homelessness is a person in our community who deserves dignity and respect. And when we humanize that, we can get away from this destructive rhetoric that's tearing us apart and tearing us apart from each other.
I'll say that harm reduction does not deny the real tragedies that happen associated with street drug use, chaotic drug use, violence. It encompasses abstinence-based recovery, as well as people being safe during the choice they're using. The one thing I like to think about, 22 years ago, my life was saved by a harm reduction program, and I just celebrated 21 years clean. Since then, I've been able to give back and do this work. And so what always rings true is that people say, well, they should stop using. That is my aspiration for them too. But the bottom line is dead drug users don't recover. It's my job to show up and be as kind and as compassionate and provide supportive service to give people a start where many of us have very different starting points, and it's hard to wrap our heads around how someone can make those choices. But if I don't know their starting point, how can I judge? And that we are all social justice activists here. The people here are social justice activists here. This is not charity work. We are here to support our community and those in need. And so we're going to send out some links of opportunities for learning. We're always learning. We're always refining the work that we do. So for me, what's important is continuing to learn and grow, donate when we can, volunteer in our communities, discuss what we've learned with our friends. One-on-one kindness in those small investments we make in people pay huge dividends, and that all of our efforts are of equal value.
Melanie and I, my wife, Melanie, is the executive director of Involve. She's also my boss, both at home and anywhere else we go. And she believes that firmly, and so do I. We took over what used to be the House of Charity, and we were doing meals over there. Now we're getting ready to move all our kitchen operations into that building. When we got there, the tables were really in bad condition and sticky and things like that. And one day, I'm like, you know what? You know what's missing? Tablecloths, right? I would have never believed that you could change people's behavior by putting a tablecloth on a table. 200 people, we threw tablecloths down, nobody argued, everybody sat together, had a wonderful dinner, commented on how much they liked the tablecloths. I wouldn't have believed you could change behavior with a tablecloth, and you know what, if somebody gives me a grant, I can prove that shit. The point is that raised people's expectations, not only of their own behavior, but our behavior toward them. Putting a tablecloth on says something about their dignity, right? Words that you guys use so well in the work that you do. And we have to be looking for reasons to throw out a tablecloth. When other things don't work, retreat back to that idea about how can I restore people's dignity? How can I address how they feel about themselves? And I was blown away, you know? So it really makes a difference if we attend to those things, the things you all do every single day. That makes a huge difference in people's lives, just in addressing how they see themselves.
Thank you. I have no idea what time it is or if we have more time, but does anyone have a question? Comment? Yeah, Todd.
Wonderful. Thank you. And when I first joined Avivo, or when I was thinking about joining the board, I really liked the HERE acronym, that we house, that we educate, recover, and employ. And I'm an engineer by trade, and so I see the end goal, that we want teach a person a fish mentality. And what I hear when the folks speak here, it's not always about the ultimate end game. It's about the little wins that happen along the way, and dare I say, the journey that gets them there. And again, I struggled to comprehend this initially, and it took a while for me to get it. And so I would just ask maybe the panelists to, what helps you keep that mindset going, that you might not get all the way to the end, or the path is curvy and twisted and you never know how it's going to happen, but when you save a baby's life of a pregnant mother, versus maybe the mother is still dependent on whatever situation she has, there's still victories to be had. And I know that you've shared perspectives already along those lines, but maybe just putting that context would be greatly appreciated, because it certainly helps me share the message. So thank you.
Thanks for your question. I can tell you that our reduced work week has been a game changer for our staff, and we're so grateful for that opportunity. I talk to my staff when they have really challenging moments. I ask them how they feel about their effort. And if you feel good about your effort, that can help carry us through, because we're responsible for the effort, not the outcome. And that we really focus on any positive change. That can be as simply as coming down and asking for supplies while you're choosing to use, interacting with an individual, anything that we can fan the flame of positivity, and we can help people move forward on goals that they express are important to them. And acknowledging self-care, that Avivo has really put their money where their mouth is. We meet our participants where they're at. We have met our staff where they're at to be able to care for them and have a good work-balanced life, and that has been really amazing. We get to work with the most amazing, brilliant survivors, amazing people that we serve. And for me, the spiritual part of the work has been a change in my perception. Not woe is me, these people are so challenging to work with, but what is the opportunity here?
When we talk with our team about goal planning, sometimes I hear from staff, well, they want a 3-bedroom condo downtown with marble, yada, 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 yada. Great, then they have a vision. What are the steps to get there? And recognizing where the starting point, the steps are the same if the outcome is, the granite countertops or the single room occupancy housing, right, is along that journey. So just trusting that people know what they want and drawing that from them is the art of doing this work, and recognizing the true place of where people are starting from has to be the starting place, regardless where we're going for the end point.
So it occurs to me that, harm reduction and philosophies around harm reduction are not new. It's not something that Avivo created, right? And you may do it better than other people, but you didn't invent it. Think about our domestic abuse models, how we respond to domestic abuse survivors, right? That's harm reduction behavior. We can't, as cops, we can't go out and, by force, take a woman who's being abused out of that house and make her go someplace else. So we have to be prepared to support her or him when the time comes that they actually need that support. That's harm reduction in action. It's just much more commonly accepted than clean needles, right? And I struggle with that. I get it. I totally understand. But again, two things can be the same, can be true. You can have issue with certain aspects of it and still understand that the philosophy of meeting people where they are and providing support, so when it's time, when they are at the point where they are going to be responsive to that somebody's there. And that's true, and we know that's true. I think that the best thing people can do is to resist. Well, first of all, believe Kelly, believe these guys, believe Avivo, believe the people that come from these backgrounds where they've walked in those shoes, right? I mean, my son at 22 years old, who now is our outreach director, he developed an addiction to meth. And it was very, very difficult for me as a cop who was currently doing the outreach work to watch him go through that, right? And there were times when he would, in the middle of February, he would pass out in his car with the window down because he had no place else to go. And so it was a process of trying to keep him. I would track his phone, I would go and I would find him, and I would bring him to someplace warm. To me, that was harm reduction in my personal life. And I encourage you to stay the course. Understand what's going on underneath. You talked about watching the sausage get made. I'm going to tell you something. You do not know what the sausage in city government looks like when it's being made, all right? I love the city government. I value every moment that I spent there, but those decisions are not made by a think tank of really, really, really brilliant people who understand the totality of the perspective. Doesn't mean they're not great people, they are, but they have a different job. So resist the emotions and the narrative, like you said, that pushes us away from what we know actually makes a difference in people's lives.
Thank you all so much. Anything else? Yeah.
I'm Katie. I'm a school psychologist in St. Louis Park Schools. Are we good about Thanks, Megan. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a school psychologist in St. Louis Park Schools, and I was curious about any collaborations or partnerships you have with schools to help the children that you serve through Avivo.
Yes, we have a variety of connections with schools. One of my favorite connections, and I experienced it yesterday in a really fun way, but we have women and children on our campus in recovery. Moms and kids can stay with us for up to 2 years, so there's full recovery, and they can take those next best steps. And our amazing team on that side of the work we do works so hard that when moms and kids are with us, they can stay in their school district, so we're not disrupting children. So yesterday, it made me almost late for a meeting because the Head Start van was blocking the whole street right in front of our parking lot. But watching a mom, walk her young child out with this backpack on to get on that bus. So we work really hard with many, many different school districts to help our families and kids experience the least amount of disruption as possible. In our workforce programming, we work a lot with transition age students, that's 17 to 24 year age, students with disabilities and who are having other barriers that maybe aren't going to experience success in school, experience success in our training programs and get connected to employment. We are serving, we aren't experts in youth homelessness. There's a lot of amazing providers in our community, and we are still serving very young people in our services as well, and connect wherever we can. We also make a lot of referrals of our young children, to make sure they're hitting milestones, and partner with other organizations and schools, and we provide early childhood education as well for our moms and dads. Sorry, that was probably long. And any other questions? I know if people need to leave, but we're happy to answer questions as long as anyone has. Anything else? All right. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in our hard and important mission. It's easy for us to say, but this team is the most amazing team, and there are many others at Avivo that are equally amazing doing this hard work. I want you to leave with one thing that Brandon said, is that, and our team says it often, is that a dead addict doesn't recover. Harm reduction is meeting people where they're at on their journey, whatever that journey is, and we are saving lives and changing lives every day by meeting people where they're at and loving them just as they are. And we appreciate the love that you give Avivo to do this work. Thank you.